First, we're following breaking news, a deadly school shooting in Madison, Wisconsin. I'm Terrence Lee.
I'm Sylvia Perez. 2 people are dead, several others injured.
The shooter, a teenager, is also dead this afternoon. The shooting happened at Abundant Life Christian School, a K-12 school with about 390 students.
Madison police confirm a teacher and a teenage student were killed. The gunman was also a student. Police say that family is cooperating with investigators.
Dane Blacko is in Madison. Dane, what have you learned?
Yeah, we have new information from a news conference that ended within the past hour. The Madison police chief saying that the teenage school shooter is dead, but the investigation into what triggered that shooting is just now beginning.
Today truly is a sad day for Madison and for our country. It is a day that I believe will live in our collective minds for a very, very long time.
Madison Police Chief Sean Barnes says they got the call of an active shooter at 10:57 this morning. Officers responding within minutes to the Abundant Life Christian School and finding multiple people shot inside that building. The gunman, a teenage student at the school, was dead of a self-inflicted gunshot. A teacher and another teenage student were both killed, and at least 6 other students were rushed to the hospital. 2 of those students still in critical condition with life-threatening injuries. Now, the school is a private Christian academy with roughly 350 students, ranging from kindergarten all the way through high school. Police say they had no prior contact with the gunman at the school or any warnings that he was a danger. Investigators quickly obtained search warrants and are currently searching the gunman's home. Police say a handgun was recovered at the school and that the shooter's family is cooperating. Now, buses were seen picking up the students outside the school, taking them to a medical building a few blocks away where they were reunited with their parents and loved ones. The police chief says it is way too early to speculate about a motive.
Many of you have asked me about the why of this. Why did this happen? What do we know? What was the motivation? I do not know. But I will tell you this, our detectives are working hard in the investigative process to find out as many answers as we can so that we can further prevent these things from happening, not only in this community, but in other communities around our country.
Our focus now is on supporting them and supporting the victims and their families. And we will continue to do that through the coming days and weeks.
Now, other Madison public schools were put on lockdown after the shooting as a precaution. That has now ended. We're told that we're going to get more information at a news conference coming up at 5:30 this afternoon. Live in Madison, Wisconsin, Dane Blacko, Fox 32 Chicago.
And Dane, we know President Biden's been briefed on this shooting. Right now, the White House hasn't announced a national address, but we are hearing from state leaders and lawmakers as well, Wisconsin, including the governor on X. Tony Evers wrote, "We are praying for kids, educators, and the entire Abundant Life school community."
According to the Gun Violence Archive, there have been at least 83 school shootings in the U.S. so far this year, 27 on college campuses, and 56 were on K-12 school grounds. Despite a drop during the COVID pandemic, school shootings have been on the increase in America. In 2012, there had been 14 shootings when Sandy Hook occurred on December 14th of that year. 20 first graders and 6 staff were killed.
I avoided using the bathroom whenever I could. I feared that someone would come in through the window while I was in there and try and harm me. I will not accept the fact that kids do not feel safe in school.
And we cannot let our fear and loss calcify into apathy and accept a state of permanent violence as normal.
Last week, Connecticut Democrats joined with survivors and victims' families on Capitol Hill calling for tighter gun control. Sandy Hook remains one of the deadliest school shootings in U.S. history.
And we are also just learning the AP is saying now that the shooter was a 17-year-old female student. Again, that's just coming down. As soon as we learn more about that information that we're just now getting about the shooter, we'll pass that along. But we want to continue this conversation and get a local perspective here. In 2018, a school resource officer stopped a shooter inside Dixon High School. Denny Langloss was serving as city manager at the time, but he's also the former Dixon police chief who led the training that prepared that team. for that moment. He joins us now to share his perspective. Thanks for being with us. I want to get right into this. Based on what we know about the shooting today, what stands out to you about how this shooting unfolded?
You know, a shooting like this is a parent, a school, the police department, a community's worst nightmare. And we just want to send our condolences to the families who lost loved ones and those with loved ones who are still fighting. And it looks like the response from the police was textbook. I did read some things on this. They've been doing the active shooter training. They've been into the classrooms, and they were very prepared. Unfortunately, we can be as prepared as we can be and still have these horrible, horrible outcomes.
Yeah, absolutely. And we learned today, to your point, a group of officers were training for this type of scenario just about 3 miles away. It just highlights the importance of the preparation you were talking about. Talk to me about what part of training do you think kicked in as soon as they got to the scene?
You know, from the active shooter side, there's multiple components to this. There's the ALIS training that happens within the schools where the students and the teachers are actually trained. There's the pre-planning, and then there's the active shooter response. And at that moment, when you arrive, it could just be one police officer, no backup. You're going in immediately. You're trying to identify where the threat is. You're trying to protect as many people as you can and eliminate the threat. And the good news is that when you train as much as departments like Madison does, it just becomes automatic. It's instinctual. You don't think at all. You just go.
What parallels, if any, are you seeing between what happened in Dixon and the tragedy in Madison today?
You know, a couple of the parallels, it's obvious there's a ton of planning, a ton of training, and it's just the trauma. It's the impact of the community. We were fortunate. There was a school resource officer right down the hall. At our shooting in May, my senior daughter was just on the other side of the doors when the gunman opened fire on a teacher, luckily missing the teacher. The SRO was there. I think school resource officers is something we got to continue to look harder and harder at to try to get them in all the schools to provide for that safety. But really impressed with what we've seen from the response from Madison, and our heart goes out to Chief Barnes and all of his officers.
Yeah, given your experience and just knowing this is the 83rd, we believe, school shooting so far this year, how does an event like this impact the wider community, and what can be done to help people process and recover?
Yeah, process and recovery, the community uniting, supporting the families, the victims, the teachers, the staff, their law enforcement. It's just so important. And we do find in situations like this, the way communities are drawn together, but the healing process is going to take a long time. And even people who weren't right there, even people who didn't suffer loss are going to need that support. And then you look at the officers and the EMS personnel as well. And it's just, it's a road, it's a journey, it's not an event, and we've got to lean in, and the support can't go away in a week. It's got to stay there.
Danny Lake-Laws, thank you so much for sharing your insight and your experience and perspective here on this just awful tragedy and situation today. Thanks again for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Well, speaking of mass shootings with children, it, of course, can be difficult to talk to your kids about this, with guns remaining the leading cause of death for children and teenagers in the U.S. Psychologists say these conversations are becoming more critical. According to data from the CDC, firearm-related incidents resulted in the deaths of roughly 2,600 children in 2021. Not every child may be able to vocalize their fear. Psychologists recommend being honest, but not oversharing. They add that timing is important and not to talk about gun violence before school or bedtime.